The massive Keltharian warship hung in space like a dark blade against the stars. Captain Jake Morrison watched it through the viewing window of the Aurora Dawn and felt his chest tighten. The alien vessel was 3 times the size of his ship, covered in sharp edges and weapon ports that looked like hungry mouths ready to bite. "First time seeing one up close?" asked Dr. Lisa Carter as she joined him at the window. Her voice was calm, but Jake could see the tension in her shoulders. "Yeah," Jake replied. "Makes you wonder what kind of creatures build ships that look like they want to eat you." The communication system crackled to life. A deep growling voice filled the bridge, speaking perfect English with an accent that sounded like grinding metal. "Human vessel, this is Battle Commander Crixtall of the Keltharian Imperial Fleet. You are cleared to dock at Port 7. Our leader waits for you." Commander Sam Rodriguez stepped up behind them, his military posture as straight as always. "I don't like this, Captain. Everything about their culture screams danger." Jake nodded. Sam was right to be worried. The Keltharians had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. Every species they met either joined their empire willingly or got crushed beneath their claws. They were known across the stars as the perfect hunters, the ultimate predators that no one could fight. The Aurora Dawn moved slowly toward the Keltharian ship. As they got closer, Jake could see more details that made his skin crawl. The hull was decorated with what looked like bones and skulls from dozens of different alien species, trophies from their conquests. "Remember," Lisa said quietly, "we're here to make friends, not enemies. Humanity needs allies if we want to survive out here." Jake watched the docking bay doors open like a giant mouth. Inside, he could see massive figures moving in the shadows. The Keltharians were waiting for them. 20 minutes later, Jake stood, face to face with High Commander Zak Thul, the supreme leader of the Keltharian military. The alien was 8 feet tall and built like a living tank. His skin was dark gray and looked harder than steel. 4 yellow eyes studied Jake with the focus of a hunting cat. Razor-sharp claws extended from his fingers, each one longer than a knife blade. "So," Zak Thul rumbled, his voice like distant thunder, "these are the humans we have heard whispers about." Jake tried not to show his fear. Next to this creature, he felt like a child standing next to a giant. "High Commander, thank you for agreeing to meet with us. Humanity is honored by your invitation." Zak Thul's mouth opened in what might have been a smile, showing rows of teeth designed for tearing flesh. "Your species interests me, human Jake Morrison. You come from a world far from our empire, yet you dare to travel the dark spaces between stars. Tell me, what makes you think you can survive in a galaxy ruled by predators?" Before Jake could answer, another Keltharian approached. This one wore the uniform of a general and carried himself with the confidence of someone who had never lost a fight. "High Commander," the general said, "these creatures look so soft. Are we certain they are intelligent? They appear more like prey animals than spacefaring beings." Zak Thul held up one clawed hand. "Patience, General Mordak. Appearances can be deceiving. These humans built ships that cross the void. They have technology. There must be more to them than meets the eye." Jake felt Sam tense beside him. The Marine's hand moved slightly toward his sidearm before stopping. Lisa stepped forward with a friendly smile. "General Mordak, I'm Dr. Lisa Carter. I study different species and their behaviors. We're very interested in learning about Keltharian culture and history." Mordak studied her with all 4 eyes. "Culture? History? We are warriors, human female. Our history is written in the blood of our enemies. Our culture is the hunt." "Then you must have many interesting stories," Lisa replied. "We'd love to hear about your greatest victories." Something shifted in the Keltharian general's expression. Pride, Jake realized. Like most warriors, Mordak enjoyed talking about his battles. "Come," Zak Thul commanded. "We will show you the glory of the Keltharian Empire." They walked through corridors that felt more like caves than spaceship hallways. The walls were covered with weapons from 100 different worlds and pictures of Keltharian soldiers standing over defeated enemies. Each image showed the same pattern. Tall, fierce Keltharians looking down at smaller, weaker creatures who had surrendered without much of a fight. "This is our Hall of Conquests," Zakthul explained as they entered a massive room. "Here we display trophies from every species that has fallen before Keltharian might." The room was filled with artifacts, weapons, and what looked like flags from defeated civilizations. Jake noticed that most of the weapons were farming tools or ceremonial items, not military hardware. The flags showed symbols of peace, growth, and harmony rather than war or strength. "The Zenthians surrendered after we destroyed one of their cities," Mordak said proudly, pointing to a display case. "They were farmers and artists, no match for Keltharian hunters." "The Orvac lasted 3 days," another Keltharian officer added. "They tried to hide in their underground cities, but we dug them out." "And the Telmarians?" Jake asked, looking at a collection of musical instruments in one case. "Musicians and poets," Zakthul laughed. "They offered to sing for us instead of fighting. We accepted their surrender before the first song ended." Lisa was studying the displays with the focused attention of a scientist. Jake could see her mind working, processing what she was seeing. Sam stood with his back to a wall, his eyes constantly moving, watching for threats that might come from any direction. "You have conquered many species," Jake said carefully. "Have you ever fought anyone who fought back?" The question seemed to surprise the Keltharians. Zakthul's 4 eyes narrowed as he considered it. "Fought back?" he repeated. "All species fight when cornered, but none have been able to match Keltharian strength and speed. We are evolution's perfect predators." "Of course," Jake said quickly. "I was just curious about your military tactics." As they continued the tour, Jake began to notice something troubling. Every species the Keltharians had conquered seemed to be peaceful by nature. Plant-eaters, artists, farmers, and philosophers. None of them appeared to have any real military tradition or warrior culture. The Keltharians were certainly impressive fighters. Their strength and natural weapons made them deadly in combat, but they had never actually been tested against anyone who knew how to fight back. "Tell us about your homeworld," Zakthul said as they reached the end of the tour. "What is this Earth like?" Lisa and Jake exchanged glances. How could they explain Earth to creatures who had never faced real opposition? "Earth is—" Jake started, then stopped. "How do you describe a death world to apex predators who had only hunted sheep?" "Earth is complicated," Lisa finished. "Perhaps we could discuss it over dinner. We have many stories to share." Zakthul's predatory smile returned. "Excellent. Tonight you will dine with the finest hunters in the galaxy. We have much to learn about each other." As they were escorted to their guest quarters, Sam whispered to Jake, "Captain, I don't think these guys have ever fought a real war in their lives." Jake nodded grimly. The Keltharians thought they were the ultimate predators, but they had no idea what was coming when they learned the truth about humanity and the world that had forged them in fire and blood. The dinner hall was enormous, with tables carved from what looked like the bones of massive creatures. Keltharian officers sat around the room, their yellow eyes glowing in the dim light. The food was raw meat from animals Jake hoped he would never meet, but he forced himself to eat politely. General Mordak stood at the head of the main table, raising a cup filled with dark liquid. "Tonight we honor our guest from the distant world of Earth," he announced. "Let us share the stories of our greatest victories so they may understand the power of the Keltharian Empire." The other Keltharians roared their approval, a sound that made Jake's teeth hurt. Mordak began his tale with obvious pride. 20 years ago we discovered the Zenthian system. Their cities were beautiful, covered in gardens and art. When our ships arrived, they sent messages of welcome and friendship. Mordak's claws clicked against his cup. "We demanded their surrender. They asked for time to consider. So we destroyed their largest city from orbit." The Keltharians around the table nodded approvingly. One officer called out, "How long did they take to surrender after that?" 6 hours, Mordak laughed. "They sent every ship they had loaded with gifts and messages of peace. Their leader begged us not to hurt anyone else. Pathetic creatures, but their world had good farming land." Another Keltharian stood up. "Tell them about the Orvac, General. That was a fun hunt." Mordak's eyes brightened. "Ah yes, the underground dwellers. They lived in caves beneath their planet's surface, afraid of the sunlight. When we arrived, they sealed their tunnels and hid like frightened animals. It took us 3 days to dig them out. Did they fight? Sam asked quietly. Fight? Mordak seemed confused by the question. They had no weapons except mining tools. Some tried to collapse tunnels on our soldiers, but Keltharian armor is too strong. Most just ran deeper into their holes until we caught them. Jake felt Lisa's hand touch, his arm under the table. She was trying to tell him something, but he wasn't sure what. What about the Telmarians? Another officer asked. That was the fastest conquest in Empire history. Mordak practically purred with satisfaction. The music makers. Their entire civilization was built around creating beautiful sounds. When our fleet surrounded their homeworld, they broadcast songs at us instead of launching weapons. They thought music could stop war. The general's laughter was harsh. We told them to surrender or die. They chose surrender before the first song ended. Commander Rodriguez had been listening quietly, but now he leaned forward. General, in all these conquests, have you ever fought a species that actually fought back? I mean really fought, with organized military forces and battle tactics? The question hung in the air like a challenge. The Keltharian officers looked at each other with confusion. Zakthul's 4 eyes focused on Sam with new interest. All species fight when threatened, the High Commander said slowly, but none have possessed the strength or speed to match Keltharian warriors in battle. That's not what I mean, Sam continued. Have you ever faced an enemy that had studied war as much as you've studied hunting? Someone who fought back with strategy and tactics designed to kill your soldiers? The silence stretched uncomfortably. Finally, a younger Keltharian officer spoke up. There was the Corvain Rebellion 15 years ago. Some of their soldiers had learned to use our own weapons against us. How long did that last? Sam asked. 2 days, the officer admitted. Once we brought in our elite hunters, they scattered like prey animals. Dr. Carter had been quiet throughout the meal, but now she set down her cup and smiled. These are fascinating stories. They remind me of some conflicts from Earth's history. Your species has a history of war? Zakthul asked with interest. Oh yes, Lisa said calmly. Humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years. We have detailed records going back over 5,000 years, and evidence of warfare going back much further than that. The Keltharians looked skeptical. General Mordak made a dismissive sound. Surely not real wars. Perhaps small disputes over territory or resources. Lisa's smile grew wider. Let me tell you about something we call World War II. It lasted 6 years and involved nearly every nation on our planet. Over 70 million humans died. The number seemed to shock the Keltharians into silence. Jake watched their faces as Lisa continued. The war was fought on every continent and across every ocean. Humans developed new weapons specifically designed to kill other humans more efficiently. We built machines that could drop explosive bombs from the sky. We created gases that could kill thousands at once. We even figured out how to split atoms to make weapons that could destroy entire cities. Impossible, Mordak whispered. No species would develop such things to use against their own kind. We did, Lisa said simply. And that wasn't even our biggest war. We've had hundreds of smaller conflicts, some lasting decades. We fought in frozen wastelands, burning deserts, and dense jungles. We fought on land, sea, air, and even underground. Captain Morrison decided to add some details. One of our most famous battles happened at a place called Stalingrad. 2 armies fought over a single city for 5 months. The fighting was so intense that soldiers fought for individual buildings, room by room. By the end, over 1 million people were dead and the city was nothing but rubble. But they kept fighting? Asked a Keltharian officer in disbelief. They kept fighting, Jake confirmed. Neither side would give up. They fought in the snow without enough food or supplies because surrender wasn't an option. Sam stood up slowly, his military bearing making him look larger than he was. General Mordak, you asked about species that fight back. Let me tell you about the Battle of Thermopylae. 300 of our warriors held a mountain pass against an army of over 100,000 enemy soldiers. They knew they couldn't win. They knew they were going to die, but they fought anyway because it would give their people time to prepare for war. What happened to them? Zakthul asked quietly. They all died, Sam said. Every single one. But they killed so many enemies that the invasion was delayed long enough for our people to organize a counterattack. The 300 warriors saved their entire civilization by choosing to die rather than retreat. The dining hall was completely silent now. Jake could see the Keltharian officers trying to process what they were hearing. These creatures had built an empire by conquering peaceful species. They had never encountered anything like humanity. Lisa continued her lesson. Earth is what scientists call a death world. Almost everything on our planet is trying to kill everything else. We have predators that hunt in packs, others that use poison, and some that are strong enough to crush steel. We have diseases that can wipe out millions, natural disasters that can destroy continents, and weather that can freeze or burn anything alive. How did your species survive? Zakthul asked, his voice barely above a whisper. We learned to fight everything, Sam answered. We fought the predators, the diseases, the weather, and each other. We got better at it over thousands of years. We had to, or we would have died out. Jake watched the Keltharian High Commander's face change as understanding dawned. For 3,000 years, the Keltharians had been the apex predators in a galaxy full of prey. They had never met another species that understood violence the way humans did. We didn't come here to threaten you, Jake said carefully. We came hoping to be friends. But you should understand what kind of world created us. Zakthul was quiet for a long moment, his claws drumming against the table. When he finally spoke, his voice was different, thoughtful, maybe even worried. I think, he said slowly, we need to learn more about this Earth of yours. High Commander Zakthul paced back and forth in his private chamber like a caged predator. The conversation at dinner had disturbed him more than he wanted to admit. These humans claimed to come from a world of constant warfare, but they looked so fragile, so weak. He needed to know the truth. A soft chime announced General Mordak's arrival. The general entered with his usual confident stride, but Zakthul could see uncertainty in his 4 eyes. High Commander, I've been thinking about what the humans told us, Mordak said. Do you believe their stories about this Earth? I don't know, Zakthul replied honestly. But I intend to find out. Arrange a military exercise, something that will let us see these humans in action. An exercise? Mordak's claws extended slightly. Against them? With them, Zakthul corrected. Make it seem friendly. A cultural exchange. But I want to know what these creatures can really do. The next morning, Captain Morrison received an invitation that made his stomach tighten. Commander Rodriguez read the message twice before looking up with concern. They want us to participate in a combat exercise on something called Valos Prime, Sam said. 20 of their elite hunters against 10 of us. Capture the flag scenario. Dr. Carter frowned. That doesn't sound very friendly. It's not, Jake replied. They're testing us. The question is, do we accept? Sam checked his sidearm and smiled grimly. Captain, I've got 9 Marines on this ship who've been getting restless. This might be exactly what we need. Sam, these are 8-foot-tall killing machines with natural weapons and 3,000 years of combat experience. Yes, sir. Sam nodded. Should be interesting. 6 hours later, they stood on the surface of Valos Prime, a moon that looked like someone's idea of hell. The sky was yellow with sulfur clouds. The ground was sharp black rock and the air smelled like rotten eggs. In the distance, something howled with a sound that made Jake's skin crawl. This is our training ground, General Mordak explained, proudly. Keltharian warriors have used this moon for centuries to test their skills. The environment is hostile, the native creatures are dangerous, and the terrain is unforgiving. Perfect for separating true hunters from weak prey. 20 Keltharian soldiers stood in formation nearby. Each one was a killing machine, armed with energy weapons and wearing armor that gleamed like beetle shells. Their leader, Battle Captain Vextar, studied the humans with obvious disdain. These are the warriors from the Death World? Vextar asked. They look like they would break if I breathed on them too hard. Commander Rodriguez stepped forward with his 9 Marines. Compared to the towering Keltharians, they looked tiny. But Jake noticed something in their posture, the way they moved and watched their surroundings. These weren't prey animals. The rules are simple, Mordak announced. Each team starts at opposite ends of the training ground. There's a flag at the center. First team to capture it and return to their starting point wins. No lethal weapons, but everything else is allowed. How long do we have? Sam asked. Until sunset, Vextar laughed. Which should be more than enough time to teach you soft creatures about real warfare. The Keltharian soldiers spread out in a hunting formation that had worked for them across 100 worlds. They moved with the fluid grace of natural predators, using their superior speed and strength to cover ground quickly. But when they reached the center of the training ground, the humans were nowhere to be found. Where did they go? One Keltharian, Hunter asked, scanning the rocky terrain with multiple vision spectrums. They're hiding, Vextar snarled. Typical prey behavior. Find them. The Keltharians began a systematic search, confident that their superior senses would locate the humans quickly. They had hunted across dozens of worlds and never failed to find their prey. The first trap caught them completely by surprise. Sergeant Pete Collins had spent 20 minutes rigging a simple deadfall using loose rocks and salvaged cable from their equipment. When 3 Keltharian hunters passed underneath, a ton of stone crashed down on them. The armor saved their lives but knocked them unconscious. What was that? Vextar demanded over the radio. Before anyone could answer, 2 more hunters stumbled into a pit that hadn't been there an hour ago. The humans had dug it by hand using their helmets as shovels, then covered it with a thin layer of rock and dust. They're using the environment against us, one of the surviving hunters reported. Setting traps. Impossible, Vextar replied. No species fights that way. Find them and crush them properly. But the humans weren't done. While the Keltharians searched for traps, Marine Lance Corporal Danny Walsh had climbed to high ground with an improvised sling made from uniform fabric and small rocks. His first shot took out a hunter's helmet sensors. His second shot hit another hunter in the shoulder, spinning him around. The Keltharians finally spotted Walsh and charged his position with overwhelming force. But when they reached the rocky outcrop, he was gone. Somehow the human had vanished again. This is impossible, Vextar growled. They're just prey animals. They can't disappear. Sir, one of his hunters called out, I think I understand what they're doing. Explain. They're not trying to win through direct combat. They're wearing us down, making us waste energy chasing. Then while they pick us off one by one, Vextar's 4 eyes narrowed. In 3,000 years of conquest, no enemy had ever used such tactics. Every species they'd fought had either surrendered immediately or tried to match Keltharian strength. With strength, the next attack came from behind. 3 Marines appeared from cover that shouldn't have existed, fired their non-lethal training weapons with surgical precision, then disappeared again before the Keltharians could react. They're using squad tactics, another hunter reported with growing alarm. Coordinated movements, hit and run attacks. Sir, they fight like we do, but different. Different was an understatement. The humans fought like nothing the Keltharians had ever encountered. They used terrain advantages, created diversions, and turned every piece of equipment into a potential weapon. When they did engage directly, they worked together with a precision that made Vextar's hunting pack look clumsy. By mid-afternoon, 15 of the 20 Keltharian hunters had been eliminated. The remaining 5, including Vextar, were exhausted, from chasing shadows and jumping at every sound. Where are they now? Vextar panted, his armor scarred from impacts and his confidence shattered. The answer came from directly above them. Commander Rodriguez and 2 Marines dropped from an overhang they had somehow climbed without being seen. The surprise attack eliminated the last 3 hunters in seconds. Vextar found himself alone, surrounded by 10 humans who had appeared from the rocks like ghosts. His radio crackled with reports of captured Keltharian soldiers but no human casualties. Surrender, Sam said simply, his weapon trained on the Keltharian captain. Impossible, Vextar whispered. We are the apex predators. We are evolutions, perfect hunters. Maybe, Sam replied. But we're evolution's perfect survivors. When the exercise ended at sunset, General Mordak stared at the results in disbelief. 20 elite Keltharian hunters, the finest warriors in the Empire, had been defeated by 10 humans who looked like they could barely survive a strong wind. High Commander Zak Thul examined the battlefield with growing understanding. The humans had used tactics that no Keltharian military academy taught. They had turned the environment into an ally, used psychology as a weapon, and fought with a coordination that spoke of long experience. How? He asked Captain Morrison. Jake looked at the Keltharian leader with something that might have been sympathy. High Commander, your people are incredible hunters, but we're not prey. We learned to fight by fighting each other for thousands of years. Every dirty trick, every strategy, every way to survive when you're outnumbered and outgunned. We had to learn or we would have died out long ago. Zak Thul studied the human captain with new respect and a growing sense of unease. For 3,000 years, the Keltharian Empire had been unchallenged. They were the apex predators in a galaxy full of sheep. But now they had met the wolves. High Commander Zak Thul sat alone in his command chamber, staring at the tactical display showing the combat exercise results. 20 elite Keltharian hunters defeated by 10 humans. The numbers didn't lie, but his mind struggled to accept what they meant. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. Enter, he called. General Mordak stepped inside, his usual confidence replaced by confusion and concern. High Commander, the battle analysis is complete. Would you like to review it? Show me, Zak Thul said quietly. The holographic display activated, showing the exercise from multiple angles. Mordak pointed to various sections as he spoke. The humans never engaged us directly when they were outnumbered. Instead, they used what our analysts call asymmetric warfare. They turned our strengths against us. Explain. Our hunters are faster and stronger, so the humans made speed irrelevant by controlling the terrain. Our senses are sharper, so they use that against us by creating false targets and diversions. Our weapons are more powerful, so they made sure we couldn't use them effectively. Zak Thul watched the replay of human Marines setting traps with materials they found on the battlefield. They improvised weapons from nothing. Yes, sir, in 17 different ways. They turned rocks into projectiles, cables into snares, and terrain features into fortifications. Our warriors have trained for centuries, but we've never seen anything like this. The High Commander's claws drummed against his chair. What does Battle Captain Vexitar say about this defeat? Mordak's expression grew uncomfortable. He's requested immediate transfer to a different unit. He says fighting humans is unnatural. That evening, Zak Thul sent a private message to Captain Morrison, requesting a meeting. No guards, no ceremony, just two leaders talking honestly. They met in a small observation deck overlooking the training moon. Jake arrived first, looking out at the yellow-clouded landscape where his people had just rewritten Keltharian military thinking. Captain Morrison, Zak Thul said as he entered. Thank you for coming. High Commander, I assume you want to discuss the exercise. Zak Thul moved to stand beside the human, towering over him but somehow not feeling superior anymore. I want to understand. Your people defeated our finest warriors, but you show no pride in victory. Why? Jake was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. Because victory in training means nothing, High Commander. We didn't come here to prove we could fight you. We came hoping we wouldn't have to. But you could fight us, Zak Thul said. It wasn't a question. If we had to, yes. But that would be bad for everyone. The Keltharian leader studied the human's profile. Tell me about your wars, Captain. Not the stories you shared at dinner, but the truth. What happens when humans really fight? Jake sighed deeply. We destroy everything, High Commander. When humans go to war, we don't just fight armies. We attack supply lines, communications, civilian targets, anything that helps the enemy. We poison water supplies, burn crops, and turn entire planets into battlefields where nothing can live. Surely you exaggerate. No, sir, I don't. In our Second World War, we built weapons that could kill 100,000 people in seconds. We used them twice, then built bigger ones. Today we have enough nuclear weapons to turn Earth into a dead rock floating in space. Zakthul felt something cold move through his chest. You would destroy your own world? We almost did. Several times. We came within minutes of ending our entire civilization because we couldn't agree on politics. Jake turned to face the Keltharian. That's what you need to understand about humans. We don't fight wars to conquer. We fight wars to survive. And, when survival is at stake, we'll do anything. But you seem so reasonable, so civilized. Jake smiled sadly. That's because we learned the alternative. We spent thousands of years killing each other with sticks and stones, then swords and guns, then bombs and poison gas. Each war taught us new ways to destroy. But it also taught us why we shouldn't. Dr. Carter's voice came from the doorway. May I join you? Both leaders turned as Lisa entered the observation deck. She had been quiet since the exercise, studying data and taking notes. Dr. Carter, Zakthul said, I was hoping to speak with you as well. Your species puzzles me greatly. Lisa moved to the window looking out at the hostile landscape. Hi, Commander, may I ask you something about Keltharian history? Of course. In 3,000 years of expansion, have you ever fought a war that lasted more than a year? Zakthul thought carefully. No. Our longest campaign was against the Corvain rebels. That lasted 8 months. On Earth, we had a war that lasted 30 years, another that went on for 100. We've had conflicts that spanned generations where great-grandfathers and great-grandsons fought the same enemy. Why didn't you surrender? Because surrendering meant extinction, Lisa replied simply. On Earth, losing a war often meant your entire people would be wiped out or enslaved. So we learned to fight until everyone was dead rather than give up. Commander Rodriguez joined them on the observation deck, completing the small group. Hi, Commander. You asked Captain Morrison about human wars. Let me tell you about peace. Peace. The times between wars. Humans don't just fight, we prepare to fight. Every human child learns basic survival skills. We study military history like it's religion. We train our bodies and minds for conflict even when no enemy threatens us. Sam gestured toward the training ground. Those Marines who beat your hunters today, they've been preparing for war since they were teenagers, not because they wanted to fight, but because Earth taught us that war always comes eventually. Zakthul absorbed this information slowly. The Keltharian Empire had conquered peaceful species who had never known real war. But humanity came from a world where war was the natural state and peace was just the time to prepare for the next conflict. What do you want from us? Zakthul asked finally. Friendship, Jake said immediately. Trade, cooperation, shared knowledge. The galaxy is a big place with room for everyone. And if we refuse? The question hung in the air like a threat. Sam answered with military directness. Then you refuse. We're not conquerors, High Commander. We don't force friendship on anyone. But, Lisa added quietly, you should know that humans are spreading throughout the galaxy. We have colony ships heading to dozens of systems. Some of those colonies will be near Keltharian space. Are you threatening us? Zakthul asked, his claws extending slightly. No, Jake said firmly. We're being honest. Humans are good neighbors to those who want peace. But we're very bad enemies to those who threaten us. Zakthul considered this. For 3,000 years, the Keltharian Empire had been the ultimate predators in a galaxy of prey. They had never met another species that understood violence as well as they did. But now they faced a choice. They could try to destroy humanity before it spread further, risking a war against opponents who had spent millennia perfecting the art of killing. Or they could accept these strange creatures as equals and learn from them. Captain Morrison, Zakthul said slowly, I have a proposal. I'm listening. The Keltharian Empire has strength and technology, but we lack something your species has in abundance. We want to learn your methods of warfare. In return, we offer you protection and resources as you expand into the galaxy. Jake extended his hand in the human gesture of agreement. High Commander, I think that's the beginning of a beautiful friendship. As Zakthul carefully shook the small human hand with his massive claws, he realized something important. The galaxy had just changed forever. The age of easy conquest was over. The apex predators had finally met their match, and perhaps found something better than enemies. They had found teachers,